Okay, good morning everyone. This is Mr. S, your personal tutor, and today we're going to start the train project. Now, if you look, I have the screen divided into two windows, and I find this very helpful so that I can go back and forth to take a look at what my specs are, and then I can kind of work a little bit over here in our Autodesk Inventor software. For this project, what we're going to be doing is taking a series of train parts, and we're going to be inputting all of those dimensions and actually creating the 3D model. And then after we create the 3D model, or all the 3D models, then we're going to put them together into an assembly, and then we'll explode them and do an exploded assembly like you see here, with the parts tagged with balloons, and we'll also be able to create a parts list very similar to what we have here. And finally, we will create actual working drawings or detailed drawings that show each part in a 3-view front, top, and right side configuration. And that'll be later. So the project is it's a pretty big project, but it's going to give you a lot of skills in Inventor and in creating the models, but also in drawing and detailing and putting in dimensions and all the specs that are needed to create that model in the factory. So let's get started and take a look at the first part, which is the train body. And before I start any project like this, I always like to create a project within Inventor. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on Projects. And when I do that, this dialog box comes up. And as you can see, another project was selected, Button Maker. So I'm going to have to create a new project. So to create a new project for the train, I'm going to go to New. And it's always going to be a single user project. We don't use any vault projects right now, and we don't have the software to do that anyway. So we're going to always select new single user project, and then we go to next. And then we're going to type in the project name, which is train. And really that's all you need, because we're not going to do anything else with that name. And if you notice down here, it says project workspace folder. That is where all of your parts are going to get saved, unless you decide you're going to put them somewhere else. And I don't recommend you save anything in the C drive. The C drive is the hard drive that's on your particular computer. If that computer goes down, or if we lose the drive for whatever reason, or if you go to another computer, you will not be able to access that file. So we're going to come over here to this button here, which is the Browse button, and we're going to browse for a location. And I recommend you put your files in your P drive, at least temporarily until everything is done. If you put them in the O drive or in the K drive, you run the risk of possibly somebody taking your parts or modifying them or deleting them, and you don't want that to happen. So to ensure your integrity of all your files and that everything gets maintained the way you want it to, I would recommend you put it right into your P drive. So I'm just going to come over here to Computer, and then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to find my P drive, which is this one. And then within your P drive, I would recommend you create a folder, if you haven't done that already, called IED. And I already have a folder called IED, so I'm going to come up with if you already have a folder named IED, you can come up with a folder called Train. And I think I already have a folder called Train because I've done this so many times, but I'm going to give it a 2012. I know I don't have a folder with that name. All right, and there it is. See, there's the one that I created previously, which I did in March when I was teaching this. And this one here is a new folder that I've created for this presentation. Okay, so now I have that folder, and what I'm going to want to do then is also just click on that. Okay, so that's selected. Make sure that's selected, and then press OK. And if you notice, P drive / train 2012. So that's where all your parts are going to get filed. And that really comes in handy, especially if you're putting in lots of parts. And the thing you want to remember with Inventor is once you create an assembly, always do not change the name of the parts that go into that assembly, because then the assembly will not find those parts. Okay, so we've got that all set, and after you do that, the IPJ right here, that's just a suffix that means that is the folder. So we have in our P drive train 2012 and train.ipj. Okay, and we're going to go finish. And if you notice, there it is. Okay, P train 2012. And when we create the new part for the train body, it'll appear right over. It'll be appended right here. Okay, so press done, and now we're ready to go. So let's start a new part. And remember, don't come down and hit sheet metal. It's right here, standard.ipt. And you can either double click on it, or you can click and then click down here, OK. IPT, by the way, means Inventor part. Okay, that's where we always start with an Inventor part. Press OK, and you should get the grid coming up. When you see the grid, I like to keep it on grid because I can tell right away that I'm in 2D mode as opposed to 3D. And I'm going to take a look at the train body, which is the first part. And notice there's some general tolerances here, and that eventually will go on the drawing, but we don't have to worry about that right now. All we're going to do for this exercise is just copy all of the dimensions that you see here. Okay, and I'm just going to minimize this. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Now, when we start to figure out how we're going to do this model, we want to try to think about how it'll be extruded. And we have this shape here, and we have this shape, and we could also do it this way, but we may have a little trouble doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the back side of this. Okay, this. I'm going to key in on this shape right here. So that's what we're going to draw first. All right. So in order to do that, we have a couple of specs here. We need the height, we need the width, and then we need this radius right here. And this is all in inches, by the way. All right. So how do we do that? Well, we are going to have to look at both drawings. We know that the width from here to here is 2 inches. Okay, and it's the same all the way back, so we don't have to worry about that, even though we're doing the back side. 2 inches wide, and it's a certain height. Okay, we don't know exactly what that height is because the height is determined by this radius here. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, I think we're going to have to do it this way. We're going to have to put in our width, and then we're going to have to put in a point that's a certain distance away from the bottom, and then put in this arc, and then just kind of connect it. So let's see how we can do this. I like to start with we could do it a couple of ways. We can either do a rectangle. Well, let's do a rectangle. If you start with a rectangle, you're ensured that, number one, you have a closed loop. Okay, and also all of your corners are automatically 90 degrees, because that's the definition of a rectangle. All of your corners have to be 90 degrees. Okay, and we know that the width has to be 2 inches, so let's put that in. Dimension 2 inches. Okay, and in terms of the height, we're really not sure yet how tall this has to be, but let's put in a point, you notice, if you find the center, see the center of this line, and then just kind of navigate up where you see a little dotted line. If you start down there and you work your way up, you're ensured that you're putting that point right in the center of this line, which is where we want it. See, because it has to be 1 inch away from this edge, okay? And it has to be 0.375 from the bottom, so let's put that in. Click on the bottom edge, click on the point, and then bring it over. And that has to be 0.375. Okay? And just to be on the safe side, we'll put the 1 inch dimension in. Doesn't really matter which way you're coming from. If you notice, it's perfect. It's right on the money. Okay, so basically what that does is that now we have this point constrained to this bottom edge and this side edge, so it's not going to go anywhere. It's always going to be where we want it. The other thing I always recommend is you should always try to put the origin in the middle of your part. Why? Because later on when we start creating axes and work planes, it'll be so much easier to find the center, and we'll have the work plane or axis going right through the center of the part. So to do that, let's get out of the dimension command. You can do that by either right click and done, or you can just hit the escape key on your keyboard. So now I'm out of the dimension command, and what I want to do is actually go back to the dimension command and click on this edge and the origin, and that has to be 1 inch. Okay, so now the origin is in the center of the part. Okay, all right, now we need to put in, if you notice also these lines go blue. When you see lines that are blue like that, that means that they're constrained. They're not going to go anywhere. They can't change. However, if I got out of the dimension command, right click done, I could move this up or down. See, I can change it as long as it's green. All right, so let's take this off, because we don't actually, you know what, let's leave it. There are a lot of ways, you know, as you get into this, there are a lot of ways to do things. Let's go over to the arc command, which is right over here, 3-point arc. Okay, and we're going to click on this edge. Then we're going to come over and click on this corner, and then bring it up. And we'll just leave it like right about here for now. I want to go somewhere above that center point that we just did. Okay, all right, so there it is. Okay, and the other thing we want to do is put in a dimension, and if we look over here, it's got to be 2.35. So let's do that, dimension of this arc. So I'm going to click on the arc itself, and that has to be 2.35. Okay, so that gives us the correct dimension. But notice the point is way down here. Well, that point is supposed to be way up here. So to change that, what we can do is go to one of our geometric constraints. It's called coincident. Coincident means we want this point and this point to share the same space. So this will be right on top of, or sharing the same space with this point. So let's go ahead and do that and see what happens. I'm going to click on this point, and I'm going to click on this point that we created earlier, and there we go. See? So what it did was it extended the model, and now we've got the correct dimension for the height. Notice the height just changed automatically. The last thing we want to do is remove this line. Now there are two ways you can do that. The first way is just to right click on it, and well, first you have to get out of the command that you're in. Right click on that line and delete, which is down here. Okay. Or what I could have done was I could have just clicked on under modify, trim. And the thing you want to remember about trim Trim works as long as there's no dimension on that particular line. If there's a dimension placed on that line, the trim command won't work, and you'll have to get rid of the dimension, then trim, and then put the dimension back in if you want to keep that dimension constrained to that number. Okay, so now we have the basic shape for the train body. Okay, and that's good enough. Don't get into the situation where you're trying to do a lot more than you should be doing. At this point, you know, we have this shape here defined, and we're going to extrude it back this distance, which is 5.5. All right, so let's finish the sketch. And we're going to go to the extrude command, and we're going to put in the length, which is 5.5. All right, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit by just turning my little jog wheel on my mouse, just like that. And I'm extruding this way because remember we did the back, or the right side, if you will, of the part, right? So this is going to be the front of the part. This is, actually, yeah, this is the back. This is the front, so this will be the right side, and that is the back. All right, we got 5.5 put in. It's going the right way. We press OK. All right, so now we have our train body, the beginning of it. All right, so now we're going to have to do some, and that was called additive process because we added material to a profile. Now we're going to do a subtractive process, which removes material from an existing shape. So to do that, we're going to create a 2D sketch right up here, and we're going to go to the front surface of the train body, and notice now we have a sketch, and we're going to try to put in this geometry right here. Now when I look at this, I see a rectangle and I see a circle. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's put in a circle, and I'm going to start it like maybe over here somewhere. The thing you want to be careful of too is you don't want to hit, like if you hit the origin when you're making that circle, it'll actually force that circle to be tangent to that center mark, and then once you do that, you're not going to be able to change the size of the circle. So you want to be careful that you don't hit any existing points when you're making that first circle. Now that circle isn't the right size and it's not in the right location, but we're gonna fix that next. So let's go to dimension, and let's dimension the circle. Now if we look over here, we see that the circle has a radius of 0.75. But when we put this dimension in, we're putting in the diameter. So we're going to have to take 0.75 and multiply that times 2. And a really easy way to do that is just to type in 0.75, and then you're going to go Shift 8, which is the asterisk. That means times 2. And hit the check mark, and now we have the correct size circle. Okay, but the circle isn't in the right location. It's got to come down. See it? See where it is here? It's got to come down from the top. So we have to locate that circle. Well, how do we do that? We come back to our drawing here. We see that the circle has to be in the center of the part. Okay, 1 inch. So if you go right to that center point, see the center mark for the circle, and you just come down the extension line, you see that from this edge to the center of the circle has to be 1 inch. So let's put that in. From this edge to the center of the circle has to be 1 inch, which it is. I just happen to drop it in the center. But now for this dimension, and remember we always locate our circles from both directions. We have to locate them horizontally and vertically. So let's do the vertical distance, and the vertical distance has to be 1.38. See it? 1.38. So let's put that in. Okay, looking good. Now what we need to do is draw, and we could do this again a couple of ways. We can either draw a rectangle or we could just draw a straight line. Let's just draw a straight line. And we're going to start at this edge, and make sure you're right on the edge when you start. Okay, and you can kind of tell because you get that line there. All right, start right there, and just click, and don't worry about the location right now, but just make sure that you're drawing a perpendicular. See the little perpendicular sign? Make sure you're drawing a perpendicular line. You're going to end right there on the other edge. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is dimension that line. And if we look at our drawing here, from here to here has to be 0.88. So let's put that in. I just click on the line, click on this line, and it's a smaller dimension than this one, so it goes here. Don't get into the habit of doing that. You don't want your dimension and your extension lines to cross. That's a drafting rule. All right, you want to place it right there. Okay, and it has to be 0.88. Good. All right, so now it's in the right spot. Now what we want to do is trim out the lines that don't belong. And again, if we use the trim command, it may not allow us to do that, but we're going to have to, because I can't eliminate just this. See, if I highlight it, the whole thing will go away. The whole circle will go away. So we don't want that. We want trim. So we go to Modify, Trim, and we're going to trim this part. See how it's dashed? The dashed part is what's going to go away. So when you're trimming, you're taking away something. Okay, see that, even though there was a dimension on it, it let us trim that time. Let's see if it lets us trim this part out. It did. Okay, now notice these are green. You want to make sure that that dimension hasn't gone away. So to be on the safe side, I always put the dimension back, 0.88. And in this case, it did not move. Sometimes it might move. And I put that on both sides because I want that to be exact. Okay, so now we have kind of a boundary that allows us to cut this material away. We're going to cut this material away, but we're not going to cut it all the way through, because otherwise we wouldn't have the cab portion of the train body. Okay, so we're going to cut, but we're only going to cut this far. Okay, so let's finish our sketch, because there's nothing more to do here. And we're going to select Extrude, but this time it's going to be cut. Okay, when you look at the box here, notice that, and same thing over here, you can do it either way. You can work out of this box, or you can work right over here, whatever's easier for you. But if you click on Profile, you're going to click where you want to cut out material. Okay, and you always want to make sure too that if you're going to cut, this is the cut button right here. This is Extrude Join, which adds material. This is Extrude Cut, which cuts material away. And this is Intersect, which just cuts the intersection of the two shapes. So we want this one, which is cut. And we're going to click on this profile. And notice it's going all the way through. We don't want that. So we need to figure out how far to go. Well, the entire length of the part is 5.5. And this part is 1.75. So we want to cut 5.5 minus 1.75. All right, so let's just put that in. 5.5 minus, now see, that was highlighted, so what I should have done was just hit the cursor after it. 5.5 minus 1.75. And there we go. And if you press OK, it makes the cut. Okay, so there is a roughed out version of our train body. Now we're not done yet. We still have more cutting to do. So let's cut out this D shape right here on the cab. Let's do that next. So we're going to need to create another sketch. create 2D sketch. We're going to put that sketch right here. Click on the side. Okay. And if we look at this carefully, the circle is here, but then there's a straight portion. So the center of the circle is not going to be on the edge. It's going to be in 1/4 of an inch. You see the speck right here. Okay. So the center of this circle is going to be 1/4 of an inch in, and it's going to be 1.75 inches from the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Circle. And again, be careful. Don't put your circle, the center, on the edge, because you won't be able to get it off. It'll constrain that center to this edge, and you'll have to get rid of the circle and or eliminate the constraint and redo it. So let's bring the circle in here somewhere. And again, when you're bringing it out, don't hit the edge. See, because see the little tangent sign there, right there? What that would do is that would force that circle to stay tangent to that edge, but we don't want that. So we're just going to put it right there for now. Notice the circle is green, so that means you can move it around. It's not constrained. Well, let's constrain it to the proper location. We also have to make the size correct, so let's do that. Remember, circles and holes need size and location dimensions. So we'll click on dimension, click on the edge of the circle, not the center, the edge. Bring it out, and we're going to make that circle, well, let's see, the radius is 0.5, all right, so it's going to be 0.5 times 2, which is 1 inch, right? Now that's easy. You could have done that in your head, but I'm just showing you how the math part and the parametric dimensioning part of the system works. Okay, so now we have that. It's the right size, but remember, we have to locate it. And we're going to locate it 1.75 from the bottom. So click on the bottom edge, or the bottom surface here, and the center of the circle. And we're going to click in, or put in 1.75, okay, right here. And the center has to be 0.25 from this back edge. So let's put that in. .25. There we go. Now the circle is in the right place. Now, if you notice, see how the circle's coming down? Well, that has to be straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a line, and we're going to start right at the top of the circle, and click, and then you're going to go straight over until you hit the edge. And notice that the line I'm making is tangent. You see the little tangent sign there, and it's also going to be coincident with this edge. And click. And if you did it right, you'll see that it's in blue. Okay? If it comes green, that means you probably didn't hit the top in the circle, and it's not tangent. And I'll show you how to make it tangent in a second. All right, we have to do the same thing with the bottom. We're still on the line command. Now, say if I just was a little bit off here. Let's see if I can do that. All right, and I'm doing this on purpose here, just in case, just to show you. All right, it's a straight line. It's a horizontal line, but it's a little bit off from the circle, and I'm clicking on the very edge of the part. Notice it's green. Okay, so if your line like that is green, you want to make this line tangent to this circle. So how do you do that? Well, we have a little constraint, a little geometric constraint here called tangent. So click on that, and we want to make this line tangent to this circle. And there it is. Okay, so it's as simple as that. Now we want to modify, trim the lines that don't belong. And we'll get rid of this line, and we'll get rid of this line, and we'll get rid of this line. And now we have our D shape that we want. Finish the sketch, and extrude cut. Oh, look at save reminder. Part 2 and its dependents have not been saved, so click here to save. Okay, so that's probably a good idea to do. So let's save it. And remember, we have to give it a name the first time, and we're going to call it train body, because that's the name of the part. Don't name it anything else. You want to name it the same way that it's named in the tutorial, train body. Don't worry about the part number right now. We can put the part number in later. Save. Okay, and notice how it changed right here. So if you look up here, this is the part that you're working on. Trainbody.ipt is the file name for this part. Okay, so let's continue. Extrude, cut this profile. You want this, not that. You want that profile. And notice it goes all the way through. That's fine. Okay, as long as it's going all the way through. And if we press OK, it makes the cut, and that part of it is done. Okay, now let's put in some holes. Now, if we look at these holes, we have to again look at the holes carefully. This leader line is pointing to one of the holes, but it's the same thing for all three. How do we know that? Well, it's kind of implied, but really what they should have said was either typical or 3 times or 3 places. So we'll fix that when we do the detailed drawing. It has to be a flat bottom hole, okay? And this little null set, which usually means 0 in math, that means diameter. So the hole has to have a diameter of 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. It has to have a flat bottom. This little arrow pointing down means drilled to a depth of 0.125. All right, so how do we do that? Well, the best way to drill a hole is to create a point. So to do that, we need a new sketch, create 2D sketch, click on the front, and we're going to go to point, and we're going to put in 3 points. 1, 2, and I want to get it in the middle. So I'm going to start down here, find the green dot, and move up 3. Okay, I have my 3 points. Now I have to locate them. So let's locate 3 points. Well, if we look here, datum dimensioning, they're all starting from this edge. So we're going to do it the same way. We're going to click on this edge, and we're going to go 0.375 to the center of the first hole, 1 inch to the center of the second hole, 1.625 to the center of the third hole. So let's do that. Okay, dimension, edge, center, 0.375, edge, center, 1 inch. Okay, that one's good. Don't have to change that one. Edge, center, 1.625. Okay, now all of the holes are located properly in the horizontal direction. Now we have to locate them in the vertical direction. So let's look over here at our drawing again. The first hole is 0.125 from the bottom. The second hole is 0.625. Now these holes are in line with each other. So you have to make sure that both of these holes are 0.125 from the bottom. You can't just change this hole and expect that this is going to go along with it, unless you make those 2 points horizontal with each other, which I can show you how to do. All right, so let's do that. This geometric constraint is horizontal. Okay, so what that means is, if we press that, we click on the first point, we click on the second point, now they'll always be horizontal with each other. So if I changed the dimension of this point, this one should automatically update and be the same. Okay, so let's do that. Dimension, bottom edge to the first point, and it's going to be what? Right here, 0.125. See how this one moved along with it, and they're in blue? So those points are fully constrained. They're not going to move now. Now we still have to do this one. And that one there has to be, remember, 1.38. So let's do that. Bottom edge to the point, and we're going to come out here, and it's going to be 0.625. Okay? Right there. 0.625. Check. Okay. Now all 3 points are in the right location horizontally and vertically. And that is all we do to get the points started. All right, we need a center point. You can't drill a hole without a center point. So let's finish the sketch, and now let's put in a hole. A hole can be found under where is it? It's around here somewhere. Modify. There it is. Okay, so modify. And you know, if you had your toolbar spread out, it would probably show. But because the toolbar is compressed, a lot of these commands are hidden under some of these higher level commands. So we're going to click on hole. Now, we have lots of different options here. This is the one we use the most often. That's just a regular hole. And if you just kind of put your cursor there, sometimes it tells you what it is. In this case, it isn't for some reason, but this is a regular hole, regular drilled hole. This is a counterbore hole, which has this little shoulder to accept a bolt head, and it'll be flush, either flush with the surface or maybe a little below. This is a spot face, which is just a shallow counterbore, and this is countersink, which is for a flathead screw. Okay, so we're gonna choose this one because we just want a regular hole, and we want, it says flat bottom, so that means the drill point has to be a flat bottom. But let me see, it's not letting me do that, and that's because I haven't specified what centers. So if I go to centers, all of these should light up. Okay. Okay. Let's put in some of the other information, and then maybe the drill point will come up so we can specify that. All right, so let's see. This is the diameter of the hole, and if you recall from over here, the diameter has to be 0.125. So let's put that in. And you could just put in a 1 there, or you can retype it if you like. Okay. And termination means how far is the hole going to go through? Is it going to go all the way through the part? Which, see, you got a preview here. Right now it's set to go all the way through. So really the drill point doesn't apply, does it? So if we switch this to distance, notice how this turns on. Because now the drill point applies. If we're going all the way through, you wouldn't need it. Okay, so now we have to specify what the depth of the hole is, and then we come down here and it says drill down to a depth of 0.125. So that's what this is. So we're going to type in 0.125. And now we're going to click the square bottom, or the flat bottom, and that's it. That's all we need to do. Press OK, and we have our 3 holes drilled. See? And if you go like this with your cursor, you can kind of see that it is a flat bottom, and it's 1/8 of an inch in depth. Same as the diameter. Okay, good. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we have these holes, and these are cross holes, but these holes are a little different. These have threads in them. They're called tapped holes, and there are 2 of them, and they're the same. 1/4 is the thread designation. That means it's a 1/4 inch diameter, 20 threads per inch. Unified National Course, which is a designation for the thread that refers to how close the threads are to each other. And through means it goes all the way through the part, times 2 means it's in 2 places. So let's do that. Create a sketch here, point. We'll put in 2 points. 1, 2. And we're going to locate those 2 points. So we're going to go to Dimension. And the first one is going to be 1 inch from the back. Notice that the dimensions come from the back edge. So that means this is the datum. The datum is always the starting point for the dimensions. So let's go to the back and go to the first point, and that has to be 1 inch. So we'll put that in. And if you just type in a 1, that gives you 1 inch. You don't need to type 1.000. It's a lot quicker. And we're going to go from the same back edge, not from here, but from the same back edge to the second point, and that's going to be 4.5 inches. There you go. Now remember, we also have to locate these vertically. So once again, we're going to use our horizontal constraint. We're going to click on this point, and we're going to click on this point, and now they're horizontal to each other. They're always going to stay together. And we're going to go 0.5 from the bottom to the center. And remember, we're always locating to the center of holes and circles. So we're going to go Dimension from the bottom edge to the point. Going to come out here, and it's got to be 0.5. There we go. And notice this one updated along with it, so we don't have to worry about putting a dimension there. It's good. All right, so that's really all we have to do to make those 2 holes. And remember, we located both holes horizontally and vertically. And finish. Go back to hole again, which we said was under Modify. Hole. And notice it already knows where the points are, and it puts a preview in. But we don't want the holes. Oh, we do want the holes to go all the way through, don't we? So, but we just don't want to make a hole. We want to make a special type of hole called a tapped hole. So that means we're going to come down here. All right, and this is just a regular hole. This is a clearance hole. This is the tapped hole. So that's the symbol, which means tapped. Tapped means there are threads inside the hole so that we can put in some type of a screw type fastener to keep the wheels on. So let's come down here now. We have to make sure that we've got the proper designation. Let's see. Our holes are supposed to be 1/4 20 UNC. Okay. Well, that's not a 1/4 20 UNC, is it? So let's open this up. Okay, see, this is 0.125. A 1/4 inch is 0.25, right? So let's click on that. And notice this automatically goes to a 1/4 20 UNC. If you click on this down arrow here, you've got several different ones to choose from. But notice that for 1/4 20, UNC is basically it. That means that is the that is a coarse thread for 1/4 20. If it was a 1/4 24, it would be Unified National Special, and this would be Unified National Fine, and this would be Extra Fine. So as you get into fine and extra fine, you notice that there's more threads per inch, which means the threads are located closer to each other. Okay, 20 threads per inch, 24, 27, that's what that means. So they kind of go together, you know, the threads per inch and this Unified National designation. Okay, so we're going to put that in. One thing though, look at, it's not threaded all the way through. We want it to be threaded all the way through, so we have to come down here and click on full depth. And notice now it's threaded all the way through. Okay, and that's about it. That's all we have to do. Click OK, and our threads have been put in. So what it did was it drilled and tapped the 2 holes. And if you notice, it does go all the way through. So that's good. Go back to our home view here. All right, what else do we have to do? Anything else? Oh, we have to drill the hole for the stack. And this is the last thing that we're going to need to do. Actually, we're going to put the fillets on the outside and inside, but we'll do that at the very end. But if you notice here, we have a hole for the stack, but it's on a curved surface. Okay, and you cannot drill a hole into a curved surface. So what we need to do is create a work plane, and we're going to put a work plane on the top here, tangent to this cylinder. And then once we have the work plane, which is flat, by definition, we'll be able to put a sketch on that work plane. So how do you do all that? Well, you just come up here to where it says Work Features, click on that, and then I always come over here to Origin, and I open up the Origin, and notice you have different planes available, different orientations. You got three. You got the YZ plane, the XZ plane, and the XY plane. Which one do you think we're going to need? You're right, we're going to need the XZ plane. So let's just click on that. But notice the plane's not in the right position. In order to get the plane on the top and make it tangent to the cylinder, you want to come over here with your cursor and right up to the top here. And you should be able to. For some reason, it's not doing it. Oh. Okay, somehow I missed that. This has got to be clicked. So you have to click that, and you have to click this, and then come up here. That's interesting. It's not doing it. It's plane. Oh, maybe because I'm clicked on Work Features and not plane down here, because I'm in a compressed mode. I'm not used to that. Okay, let's try that. Plane. There it is. That's what you want. Okay, so if you're working in a compressed mode, that's interesting. I learn all the time when I'm doing this that you have to come down here and click the plane down here, see, because you've got these different choices and it doesn't know which one. So you have to make sure that's selected, make sure you've got the right orientation selected over here under Origin, and then come over with your cursor to the top of the cylinder and then click, and now when you see the yellow, you know that the plane is there. Okay, so that's the first step. And if you want to see it, just click on the front of our navigation cube, and you can see that, yes, the plane is in fact tangent to the top of the cylinder. Okay, let's go back to the house, back to our isometric view, and let's create a 2D sketch. And we're going to put that sketch right on the plane. To do that, you want to come over, but don't click the plane, you want to click the edge. Okay, click the edge of the plane, then it'll put a sketch surface right on that edge. Okay, so that's the next step. Now, we want to make sure that our hole is centered and located properly. So what we're going to do now is use a command that's very handy called Project Geometry. Project Geometry takes the edge that's on the surface of the train body and it projects it upward onto the plane. And why do we do that? Well, we need an edge for reference for the dimension. Okay? And we'll do one here. Okay, so now we have reference edges. So now we can go ahead and put in our circle. Actually, no, let's not put in a circle. Let's put in a point because we're drilling a hole. There. And we want to make sure that it's dimensioned 0.88 from the front, which is from here to here. 0.88. And we want to make sure that it's centered. So we're going to go from this edge to the point, and we're going to bring that up. And it is. So we don't have to change that at all. And now we have the center of this hole in the right position. Finish the sketch. Modify, hole. And we need to put in the, so we need center. And we want to make sure that this is selected here. Okay. Okay, notice that we're still selected untapped. You have to change that. It remembers the last thing you did. Okay, so you got to change that back to this. It's just a regular drilled hole. Okay, but now let's look at our spec. Just click and drag this over for a bit. This hole has to be 0.5 in diameter, drilled down to a depth of 0.25. And they don't tell us that it has to be a flat bottom. If you use a drill and you're drilling through material, usually the drill is going to have a point to it, and that angle, the included angle of that point, is going to be 118 degrees. Okay, so it doesn't really matter at this point, and I would say if they don't give you a spec, you should just use a standard drill because it's less expensive. You don't need a special tool to do that. So we have our hole specified here. See centers. We need to put in the diameter, which is 0.5. Okay. Termination. Notice it's going all the way through. Well, we don't want that. We want it to go only to a certain depth. Okay, so we're going to select distance. We want to terminate it at a certain distance. Okay, and that distance has to be 0.25. So we need to put that in right here. Okay, and finally, we're just going to go to a regular drill point. 118 degrees. Just leave that. And that's it. Click OK. And we've drilled our hole. Now, if you want to turn off the plane, you don't want to eliminate the plane, because if you eliminate the plane, you'll also eliminate the geometry that goes with it and the sketch. So if you right-click on the plane and click where it says visibility, you can uncheck it and you can turn the visibility off. Notice that when you do that, it goes from a colored icon to a black and white icon. That tells you that the work plane is there, but the visibility has been turned off. Okay, and you can turn visibility off on anything, really. If you have a sketch, you can turn it off. You have planes, axes. So if you don't want them to show in your finished model, which you really don't, you can turn off the visibility. Okay, so now the last thing we're going to do is create fillets. And why do we need to do that? Well, there is a note on here somewhere that tells us that we need that. And that's right here. Round all edges with a radius of 0.1 inches except for the drilled holes. Okay, so when they say round all edges, that means fillet. So let's go to our fillet command, and we're going to have to find it. It's probably under modify. Huh? There it is. Fillet. Okay, and the way this works is you can just put in the radius right here. Okay, 0.1. All right, so just click on that. 0.1. Now, if you just do that and you notice that the OK light doesn't come on, you have to enter it. So to enter it, you just hit the Enter key on your keyboard. Okay, notice it's entered, and now the OK light still isn't on because we haven't selected any edges. So let's select, and I like to do this kind of in stages, and sometimes some of these intersections here are kind of hard to build because you have like blended radii from 3 different directions. So what I like to do is click on just the outside edges first. And you're going to have to go all the way around. And then I'll go back in and do all of the inside edges. We're not going to do the holes, just the edges of the part. And why do we do this? Well, we do this quite often so that we don't have any sharp edges. If this is a toy, you don't want the child to get cut on a sharp edge. Okay? So I'm just turning it around. By the way, the temporary rotate is F4 on your keyboard. So you do a temporary, and then when you let go, it stops. So I like that. I use that quite often. All right, so just let's go around and let's get all the edges. Even this little edge right here. This one, and inside here, and this bottom edge, this outside edge right here. Let's see if we got everything. And go around. What I like to do is just go around and just check to make sure I got everything. It gives you a preview of what it's going to look like in the green here. Looks like we got all of the outside edges, which is good. All right, and we're not doing the holes. And then apply. Now, if you go apply, that will keep this box open, so you can do something else. And if you do this right, you should have 29 edges selected. So if you don't have 29 edges selected, you probably forgot one. You should go back and look for it and just make sure that you got it. Okay? All right. So let's apply that. If you just press OK, it'll do the command, but it'll take you out of the command as well. All right, so let's just go apply because we're going to do another one. All right, good. So it did it, and it's looking nice. Okay. And now we're going to go back in again. Now it's already selected for point 1, so we're all set with that. So we should be able to just go back in now and select the inside edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's only 5 of them. So check to make sure. Yeah. 5. And then basically we're done after this, so we don't have to hit the apply. We're going to hit OK. And it does the command. It takes us out of the command. And this is done. One last thing you might want to do is change the material. And this is just a material texture. It doesn't change the actual material. I could show you how to do that later. But let's for now just kind of change it to some color. And to do that, we're going to have to expand. The toolbar here because I don't see it here. Usually up here it'll say like as material. So let's expand it. Maximize. Okay, and see it says as material. So click on that. And remember these are colors. Even though it says wood down below here, it's really not wood unless you create that as a property. But that's for another day. Let's just go with wood oak because I think that's pretty cool. And there you have it. The train body is complete. Don't forget to save. Okay, which is this little floppy disk here. And that's it. That concludes the first part of our train project, train body. See you next time.